Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to talk about games in SEC basketball on Wednesday night. We will start in Tuscaloosa, where Alabama is a 9-point favorite, according to Ken Pomeroy. That game tips off 6 Central. First matchup of these two teams. We've talked about how Alabama has been up and down. A&M has had a weird season in its own right, but been competitive. I like Alabama to win this one, but A&M does do one thing that's been an issue for Alabama, and that's forced turnovers, Blake. I think the Tide wins, but how are we seeing this one?
Yeah, I mean it's your guess as good as mine when it comes to how an Alabama game is going to play out this season. I mean that's just kind of what it it is at this point. We joke about it, but I mean it's just pretty much a majority of their games are just very very interesting from start to finish. And I mean I think this is one that you know not unlike South Carolina, there are some things that A&M can do to challenge them defensively, like you said, force turnovers. That's one area you could look at, and I think it's can A&M make them take tough shots. And I think that's kind of the staple of a Buzz Williams team is, he's very good, I think, in terms of just understanding sort of the matchup style, just, where players need to be in terms of who their opponent is. And I think that's kind of what, has always been something. You talk about just kind of a tough, hard-nosed team. And I keep saying it. I mean, we have to remember, too, I know A&M's 7-9, and there's nothing flashy about anything they've done really to this point, but they've been in pretty much every game they played in, minus the Auburn one. So, I mean, I think it's by no means it's going to be an easy game for Alabama. I'd be very surprised if it is. I don't think this is a game where Alabama's going to come out and beat A&M by 25. Could they? Sure, because we always say it. I mean, Alabama at their best could run anybody out of the gym,
Yeah.
perhaps. Maybe not anyone, but a
Yeah,
lot of
yes,
teams.
anyone.
Just
They've run
because,
Baylor and Gonzaga out of the gym, so anyone. Well, they didn't run them out of the gym,
well,
but yeah.
that's what I was going to say. They didn't run them out of the gym. I said that a little. That was kind of the wording
Right.
is what I was hinting at there. But yes, they can beat anyone, and we know that. But I just, if they take care of the ball, I think Alabama wins this game. I don't think it's going to be easy. And I'd be pretty surprised if this is like a 15 plus point game, just because A&M, as we said, is a team that's been really almost every game they played in for the most part in SEC play, minus that 17-point loss at Auburn, which again, there's no shame in that. So I mean, I would expect this to be that kind of game. If Alabama's hitting threes, you never know. I mean, that is where they can run anyone out of the gym, because when they get going 3-pointers wise and making shots from outside, which they did against South Carolina, shot 39% from three in that one. They do those kind of things. It will be hard for A&M to keep up, but I think Buzz Williams is a really good coach, and I think he will at least have them in a position to be right there with the chance in this game. But you know what? The good Alabama shows up. I think they should take care of business here and win this one. But I don't get a sense that it's going to be easy. But Alabama fans are used to that, I think.
Yeah, A&M has played a lot of teams close this year. Okay, LSU goes to Arkansas, tip-off 8 Central. Arkansas a 3-point favorite on Ken Pom. Arkansas won the first matchup between these two teams. But boy, that was an eternity ago for both teams. Arkansas had just started to play well. LSU, I think, was without Xavier Pinson in this game. And I look, nobody's beating Arkansas in Fayetteville right now, and I think that's going to be tough for LSU to pull off.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone watching this video knows where I'm going with this one, just in terms of we've talked about it. I mean, right now for me, there's no reason to pick against the top 4 teams at home. The stat speaks for itself, and I think you just kind of have to lean on that at this point. These teams have figured it out all year long, and as we said, 1 point separates these top 4 teams from being 64-0 at home this season. So yeah, I'm going to pick Arkansas. I just think it's you play the numbers here, and that certainly leans in Arkansas's advantage. It's what I was thinking about is, man, it's hard to believe this game was played a month and a half ago. I feel like this was a couple weeks ago. But season flies by. But yeah, no Pinson for LSU. We've said it. LSU's a different team when he's on the floor, and I think anyone who doesn't think that is kidding themselves, because he adds another dimension for them. I've always said it's not like he doesn't have to come out and score 25. It's just I think having someone like him out there that has the experience in the SEC, now an older guy, which I keep thinking to him, I'm like, man, Xavier Pinson is like an older guy now
Yeah.
in the league, and it just feels like, he just stepped into the league not long ago. But yeah, so I think those kind of things, this matchup is probably like we talked about it the first time. It's LSU defensively. We know how good they are, but we also know that offensively, LSU leaves a lot to be desired, even with Pinson on the floor at times. So I think that is really the thing here, and that's what I kind of look at with this team is like a lot of teams, and as we said with the home court stat with the SEC. I mean, LSU has struggled to find a lot of wins on the road this year, like as we said, many other teams really are around the league. But so I think this will be a really good game. I don't think it's going to be easy by any means because I just think LSU is the kind of team that. What was the score in the last one? Was it like 65-58, I think. That's kind of what I expect here. I expect this to be kind of a,
That's
maybe
exactly
even
what it
like your
was.
your
Yeah.
high 50s, low 60s type game. I don't, unless I suppose, which we always know is possible in the SEC, with officiating at times, but maybe this turns into a free throw shooting contest. I hope not. But you never know. So I think it's one of those games that I think probably is played in the low 60s, maybe even upper 50s, just based on how LSU wants this game to go. And I don't think LSU is going to be able to, put themselves in a position where I don't think they're winning an 82-80 type game here in Fayetteville. I just don't really see that happening. So they're going to need to play that type of game, I think. And that's kind of what they've proven to do, right? I mean, it's just defensively, they will make some things difficult, I think, on Arkansas. But at the same time, Arkansas defensively, we saw what they were able to do against Kentucky and those kind of things. And I want to bring up another point too. It was mentioned in the comments. I just want to point out, like, when we do these reaction videos for Saturday and we do them on Monday, like there are just some things that stream of consciousness I just forget to talk about. But we were talking about the Kellen Grady thing, and it was brought up in the comments. Very good point. A lot of that, our conversation on that was more around Kentucky cannot have Kellen Grady shoot 3 shots on the road and be able to win
Yeah.
against a lot of teams, much less than Arkansas. But it was brought out. It's a very good point. Obviously, if we're saying that, that means Arkansas is doing something right defensively, and that's exactly what they did. But I just thought it was a matter of, okay, Kentucky's still got to find more ways to get him shots, whether that's screens
Three's
or
not
anything.
enough.
But
Yeah.
no, exactly. And I think, but that's what we're saying, like with Arkansas, is this is a team, defensively, you talked about in the last video. It's like, look how far they've shot up statistically, just over this stretch here, and how much better they've gotten on that side of the floor. And that's where I think they will make some things very difficult for LSU, because I'm wondering. I'm going to look at this here because I'm really more curious than anything. But yeah, I had a feeling it's going to be the case, and so I want to bring this number up here. So if you look at LSU's odds on the road in SEC games, they scored 66 against Kentucky, 75 against South Carolina, which okay, they scored 76 against A&M, right? 66 at Vanderbilt, 68 at TCU, 650 at Tennessee, Alabama 67, 64 at Florida, 55 at Auburn. Now remember, some of those are without Xavier Pinson, so you have to factor that into play too. But we've also mentioned it before, like this is just not a team that's going to score a ton of points. And I think it's because the defense drives everything, right? It's so different from what it has been. So I really do. Like, I'm very intrigued by this matchup because I know we've seen them play, a month and a half ago, but with Pinson on the floor, what does that look like? How different is it? I think that's a very fascinating aspect of it for me. But, I mean, if Arkansas does what Arkansas's been doing, they're going to win the game. And that's really as simple as that. I just think that, this is just a team that right now is just finding ways to win, and they're doing it I mean, really, at this point, is it safe to say, because after we've had this Arkansas-Kentucky game, Arkansas is playing better than anyone in the SEC right now, any other team, ahead of Kentucky, Auburn, and Tennessee. I would put Arkansas ahead right now because just in terms of how they played.
Tennessee would have the best argument there.
Okay, but
But
I
but
would
that
still put
one, well,
Arkansas
but that
there.
one did just go Arkansas's way in Fayetteville. So
Yes, and
there
and
you
that's
go.
why I think as of right now, as of we're recording this on Tuesday. Now this could all flip if Arkansas loses to LSU, but there's just there's there's no one that has a more impressive body of work over the past month and a half than Arkansas. Like, could you even say that nationally? Like, seriously, I'm not even joking
Baylor
there.
would
Like,
like a word in that combo.
that's fine. Put Baylor in there,
Yeah.
but still, like, that's the conversation you're putting Arkansas into now, right? Like, and I think that's where we keep coming back to on this is yes, you can point out those kind of teams, and we're not saying Arkansas is the number one team in the country, but if you just look at what they've done, and it really is built off of they've beaten the other three teams. They've beaten Auburn, they've beaten Tennessee, they've beaten Kentucky. And I know there's been some discussion on they got all three of them at home, but they still won the games, right? You still have to win the games no matter where they're played. It's not even though the stat is, 64.3% of home teams in the SEC have won this year and the 63 and 1 for the top 4, you still have to win those games no matter where they're played. And that's what Arkansas has done. Um, I don't Do you think there's trap game potential here? Because I wonder in the back of my head because I feel like LSU's the kind of team that I say all the things about them offensively and they can be very sporadic at time on that side of the floor, but their defense is usually there. Um,
I
so
hadn't thought about it as a trap game. I mean, I was thinking
I don't think
like
trap's the right word.
you almost
Yeah,
take them winning for granted at home. I think is the best way to
right.
put it.
That's
And
probably yeah.
this is not a team where I mean, and I think most of our audience knows this. You can't just show up, against LSU and expect to win, which Eric Musselman and his players know that more than anybody. I think to me it's there's something in this matchup that you can exploit. And I look, okay, LSU turns the ball over a lot. Arkansas is pretty good at forcing turnovers. I think you have to look at the other side, okay? And it's does anything pop out here? And I don't know.
I don't know. That's the thing. Like I don't.
LSU's good at defending the three, but Arkansas has not really been relying on that. We've had that conversation before. LSU does tend to take the ball away and steals a little bit. Arkansas is just average in that category. I don't see anything to me that just jumps off the page, and particularly if you're playing in that building. I mean, maybe LSU blocks a lot of shots, Arkansas gets a few blocked, but I think whatever you can come up with is negated by home court there.
Yeah, and as I said, trap was probably not the best word. Yeah, I think what I was looking at is kind of what you said. I think LSU's a tough matchup for anyone just because of how they play. I think that's probably my thinking on that is, they're just not an easy team to play. I think that's the best way to put it. And look, I mean, when you're coming off a gauntlet like this for Arkansas, I mean, you beat Tennessee at home, you have to go on the road and beat Florida, then you come back home against Kentucky. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's draining, man. It's been quite a ride here, but with our premium, it's just, I'm not going to pick against Arkansas. Like I said, I think at this point we're just trying to find ways to say, all right, if you're LSU, what's the path to victory here? And you just pointed out some of the things statistically that you could do, but it's going to be a challenge. Bud Walton will be rocking yet again, and yeah, I think it should be a really good game though. I'm curious to see kind of how the game plays out, but certainly I'm going to pick Arkansas.
Okay, Auburn goes to Mississippi State. Auburn is about a 4-point favorite according to Ken Palm. This one tips off 8 Central in Starkville. And Arkansas, Mississippi State at face value, that's an easy call. But the Bulldogs are playing in their happy place, and we know how well they play when they're in their happy place.
Yes, that is true, Shooter.
Although there's not been a lot of sharing in the happy place, judging by attendance in Starkville lately.
Shooter McGavin, not a big fan of the happy place, but I tell you, this is if you're an Auburn fan, certainly you know what's at stake here. You're rooting for the win, but I think there are a lot of people outside of Auburn, specifically in Fayetteville, Knoxville. I think Kentucky's path to the title is not great. I think of all the ones, I think it's gonna, here's what the setup is. If Arkansas and Tennessee take care of their business, Auburn were to lose this game, it basically is going to come down to how things play out. I've been trying to dissect this potential SEC title race here. So let's say Auburn loses this. All right, let's do a little mental gymnastics here for a second with some math. Auburn loses this game. Arkansas wins. Tennessee wins. Kentucky wins. So that would mean everyone goes into Saturday. Is that right? Everyone.
Say that again. Okay, give me your conditions again. I just pulled
Sorry,
up the
I think
standings.
You're muted.
Oh yes, I am muted. Okay, Auburn is 13-3. A loss would put Auburn at 13-4. So what's the next one?
So let's say all the other three win their midweek games.
Kentucky. Okay, that would mean Kentucky would beat Ole Miss. That would mean Tennessee would beat Georgia. Hardly tough calls there. And that would mean that Arkansas would beat LSU at home. So then you're looking at 13-4 across the board. That's a four-way tie.
What a setup that would be, huh?
Man.
Going into the final Saturday, and that's what said. I'm not Auburn fans. I'm not rooting for this. I'm just telling you that I know a lot of people who are.
Well, the four-way tie in that case would be eliminated because Arkansas and Tennessee play each other. So at the worst, it would be a three-way tie.
Yes.
And I think Kentucky takes care of Florida and I'm sorry, I'm going down the road. And Auburn's got South Carolina at home, just in case people are wondering. So
the SEC will award multiple. We talked about this before, right? Like they will recognize co-champions.
Everybody gets a trophy.
But I recognize the tiebreakers.
You recognize nothing.
The co-champions. All right. I'm just saying, like it will be seeded. We understand how the seeding works for the tournament, and that's what they're going to focus on. But if you want to talk about who is the true champion based on everything, right? I think there's the scenario of, like you said, Arkansas and Tennessee, one of those are going out of that. But let's say Arkansas beats Tennessee on the road. Then, in that scenario, Arkansas will have beaten Kentucky and Auburn, correct?
That is correct.
I think you're muted again.
I am muted.
The people can hear you. I can't.
No, they can't hear me either, I don't think. But anyway.
I think they can. I realized that on the last one. Like, whenever you keep talking because you're recording on your side. So, like, they can hear what you're saying, but I can't. That could be an exercise.
That could be an exercise. I'm hitting mute sometimes to save me from myself and sometimes to save us from Oreo. But anyway.
All right. Let's talk about that scenario. I didn't hear what you said. So, in that scenario, Arkansas would be the champion, right? Am I right on that? Because if they beat Tennessee, Auburn and Kentucky, and they finish with the same record as Kentucky and Auburn, Arkansas have beaten both of them, correct?
Yeah.
So if you want to recognize it that way, now for Tennessee.
God, and would that not be incredible? Right? Winning this whole thing after starting 0-3 in the league.
Like, wouldn't it be? Well, no, exactly. But like, if you take it from Arkansas to Tennessee, let's say Tennessee beats Arkansas, then it goes into
Auburn. Well, let's see. Wait a minute.
Isn't it? I mean, because Tennessee Kentucky split. Is that right? Tennessee Kentucky split. Wait, or hold on. Did they? Hold on. Let me make sure I got this right here. No, they've only played. Yeah. Hold on. They split. Right. But then it would go to, okay, who beat the higher team? Tennessee would beat Auburn, right, at that point. So it's
I'm getting vertigo.
No, but this is what I mean. Like this, think about the different scenarios here that are playing out. And I'm sure there's going to be someone in the comments going to find we're going to have something inaccurate here. But I'm trying to think through this in my head.
These terrify
and you know
me.
what you know why I'm doing this. All to tell you that my pick for this Auburn and Mississippi State game is going to be Auburn. So I'm going Auburn here. So all that stuff we just talked about.
Hey, thanks, Blake.
That was no. I'm sorry. But I was really trying to think this.
That was a big tease for nothing.
I was trying to see if anyone was going to bite on this. But I mean, look, I was going through that because you and I we were talking about this yesterday, not on the video, but we talked about it. But I was trying to think through all these scenarios yesterday, and I'm like, multiple games left. It's really hard. But as I said, it all to me comes down to this game right here. It's all about Auburn and Mississippi State because I think Auburn will be the favorite, certainly at home against South Carolina. I don't think that's a gimme by any means, but It's a top 4 SEC team at home. That's the stat we're going with. But I told you in Mississippi State Vanderbilt game, I told you what I thought of the atmosphere. I have no idea what to expect from the atmosphere in that game. I
Yeah.
assume there will be a little bit better of a crowd than there was against Vanderbilt, but I just don't get the sense that I don't know. Like I just don't. I'm not there with Mississippi State. I was at one point. I was kind of pushing Mississippi State, thinking, all right, maybe this is the team that's about to make that run. But I'm not there anymore, and that's why I know Auburn has not played well on the road. I know Mississippi State has, they have the size with some of these guys that will be able to at least make things difficult, excuse me, with Toulouse Smith and Brooks and guys like that. But I can't do it, man. I'm going to pick Auburn here because I just think that, it
State has
coming
not
off.
showed the capacity to win any of these games this season. Okay, well,
No.
no, I take that back. I
Well-
take that they have beaten Arkansas and Alabama. So
That was but
Yes.
that was December and January. Like I think
Right.
I think we are far removed for that from Mississippi State. They're just not a. I mean, yes, we've kind of held on to that. They do play better at home, and we know that. So at least for them, they have that going for them. But I mean, they have played Tennessee at home recently, right? They lost that by 9. They had their chances in that one, But elsewhere, we do talk about the beating teams at home. But if you take those Arkansas, Alabama ones out, which I think all those teams were in different places a month and a half ago. I mean, they've beaten Georgia at home, Ole Miss at home, South Carolina at home, Missouri at home, and Vanderbilt at home. And I just didn't love what I saw from Mississippi State in that game against Vanderbilt. And maybe
no, I didn't
maybe,
either.
and maybe for them, like it's a look ahead game where you're like, all right, let's just get through Vanderbilt, and then we got the biggest game of the season coming up against Auburn. Possibly, maybe there's something to that, but I just don't. I'm not there with Mississippi State anymore, and I just think it's one of those things where would any of us be shocked if they won this game? Certainly not. We know the potential's there, but that's what we've always talked about with Mississippi State. They're the team of potential, and sometimes it's unrealized potential, in my opinion. And I just think that, look, Auburn's got something on the line here, right?
Yeah.
And Mississippi State would love to play the spoiler, and maybe they find their way back into the conversation of the bubble. I think they'd still have work to do if they win this game. But I think Auburn has a lot to play for here because, like we said, you're trying to win an outright SEC championship. You're not playing for the co-champion stuff. You understand what's at stake, and I think Bruce Pearl is really good at that kind of stuff in terms of getting his guys motivated in those scenarios. So you don't want to go into that whole 5-minute discussion we just had of all these different scenarios that could play out if everyone's sitting with 4 losses on Saturday. You want this to be about Auburn. You want this to be about you and the season you've had to this point, which has been a pretty fantastic season. So I think that's where I'm gonna lead on Auburn to figure it out there. I think that once again, which guards do you trust more, right? Like Iverson Molinar, you trust more than anyone else in this game from the guard position. That's enough there, and you have kind of that bounce back game from Auburn's entire backcourt here to put because I just don't, to me, Mississippi State's not the kind of team that's necessarily just going to test you defensively like Tennessee, right? Like it's just kind of a different. I just don't see that, and I think that will maybe take some of that pressure off of Auburn's guards a bit, and maybe gets them back on track here a little more confident. So I'm going to pick Auburn, and quite frankly, I thought this would be a tougher decision, but I just am not. I'm not there in Mississippi State right now, and I just don't really know what to expect from them. But I'm gonna pick Auburn, even though, like we've mentioned for a month now, they haven't played their best basketball on the road. But I think that this is given what's at stake, I think they bounce back here.
All right, confidence level in these 3.
Hold on. I always lose the schedule when we go to do this, and I forget what
A&M at Alabama, LSU at Arkansas, Auburn at Mississippi State.
Jeez.
Alabama?
I don't know, man. I can't. I realize that's the one that makes the most sense, but I just don't know with Alabama. Yeah, I mean, I guess by default you have to.
Arkansas maybe.
Yeah,
because
that's
Arkansas
kinda
at home right
That's what I
now.
was thinking initially, but It's a tie. I mean, it's a tie, and Auburn and Mississippi State's last, just because, as we said, Mississippi State's not a bad team. I just don't think they're.
I'll tell you what,
I'm
and
not buying
I
it.
will tease this because we're going to do another video. I think a win for Mississippi State in this scenario is bigger than you think, and we're going to tell people why in the next video.
Well, I think there's a chance if Mississippi State wins this game, I think they turn around and lose at A&M. So
I like how you rain on my parade right away.
just saying. No, this is I would say this, like, this feels like one of our better Wednesday night slates of the year.
Oh yeah, it does.
I will
much
say
better
that,
than
'cause
Tuesdays.
I think even Alabama and A&M could be good. So all three of these games, enjoy them. Hopefully your favorite team wins. Some of you have to lose, unfortunately, in these scenarios, but yeah, we'll see. And all that SEC title race mumbo jumbo that we tried to work out in our heads. If anyone wants to lay that out in writing, we'd really appreciate it. So yeah.
And if your team wins, go eat a big steak.
This guy's getting shout outs all the time.
He
now.
is.
Like, Vol Steak, I think, is sliding some money under the table in a back room somewhere to you.
You don't need
trying
to
to get all the shout outs. Like, let's give some other people some shout outs, Steak. No, I'm just kidding. Enjoy.
We do need
Steak.
to give some other people some shout outs. I'll let you marinate on that for a while.
Wow, marinate. Steak, your team's not going to win on Wednesday night because they're not playing Wednesday night. They better win on Tuesday, because if they don't, we got a lot to talk about.
We have a lot to talk about if they don't win on Tuesday.
This whole entire 5-minute discussion on the title race is irrelevant if Tennessee loses at Georgia. But
That's
we'll
right.
see.
All right, tell folks about our partnership.
Yes, Action 24/7, link below. Just click on that. South 14 is the code. First deposit, they'll match up to $800. So, yeah, use that if you want to bet on any of these games.
All right, thanks for listening. Bracketology coming up.